Okay, so now that we've looked at the different reasons for using bar graphs and pie charts, flow charts, diagrams, we're going to use the structure that I explained in the previous lessons to complete an example of a bar graph in IELTS Task 1. So this is an example of a bar graph. For this example, we're going to use a question from IELTS.com online course. Let's have a look at the example now. So the question says, the following graph shows the annual rainfall in 2 North American cities. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Let's have a look at the 2 bar graphs that we're comparing and contrasting here. The first one shows the average rainfall in Vancouver, and the second one in Washington, D.C. We can see that on the x-axis we have the months, and on the y-axis we have the precipitation, which means the rainfall in millimeters. So let's use this information to complete the first part of the paragraph, which is describe. So these 2 bar graphs show the annual rainfall in Vancouver and Washington, D.C. from January to December, as indicated on the x-axis. Okay, the x-axis is the bottom line on a graph. Then, just one more sentence for the describe. The y-axis, this is the vertical up and down line. The y-axis indicates the amount of rainfall from 0 to 120 millimeters in each month. Okay, so this is the first part of the paragraph. It describes what we're looking at. There's some important words, vocabulary here that you should remember when you're looking at graphs and charts. Remember to use the specific name. So when you're looking at a bar graph, don't just say graph, but say bar graph. Also remember words like show and indicate or indicated. Remember the word x-axis. It's very useful when describing bar graphs or line graphs. Amount, of course, any words that show volume, and the other word here is the y-axis. So keep these words in mind when you're writing for the description and for the rest of these graphs. Okay, now let's start to compare these 2 bar graphs, and let's look at the most important information, and then we'll go from there. When we look at these 2 bar graphs, we can see that the overall shape of the 2 bar graphs are very different. When we look at Vancouver, we can see that January has very high rainfall, then it decreases, and from the middle of summer, July, the rainfall again starts to increase all the way to December. On the other hand, when we look at Washington, we can see that the rainfall fluctuates or changes throughout the year. So some months are high, the next month is lower, the next month is high. So that's something very important to keep in mind at this point before we start to analyze. Okay, so we're going to continue from the end of the sentence here. Remember, again, it's just one paragraph. Okay, so let's analyze the information. Now, when you have a line graph or a bar graph or a pie chart where you have months, days of the month, years, this is a chronological order. It means it's a time order. So there's kind of a start time and an end time. January is the beginning, December is the end. It's a good idea, and it's usually the most easy to go in the order of time. So from January to December, or Monday to Sunday, 1995 to 2010. So go in the order of the time. It's an easy way to analyze and describe. So, continuing on. In January, Vancouver experiences high rainfall at about 85 millimeters of precipitation. When we compare this to Washington, we can see that Washington's a little bit lower, especially when you compare it to the other months. So, but high, almost the same as Vancouver. So similarly, Washington has over 80 millimeters of rainfall in this month, although the highest rainfall in this city is in the month of May, around 95 millimeters. Okay, now let's compare the highest rainfall. So we just said that it's 95 millimeters in May in Washington, and we can see that the highest rainfall in Vancouver is in December. So on the other hand, make sure you're using compare and contrast words as much as possible. On the other hand, the highest level of precipitation in Vancouver is in the month of December at 105 millimeters. And this is 10 millimeters more than the highest rainfall in Washington, D.C. So we'll continue to analyze here. Now let's look at the lowest levels of precipitation, which are the driest months according to what these bar graphs are telling us. Okay, so let's continue from here. let's look for the lowest levels of precipitation. The most dry month, and again, we're changing numbers into human words. So when you have low precipitation, means low rainfall, you have a dry month. So the most dry month in Vancouver is in July, under 20 millimeters of rainfall. Conversely, the least precipitation in Washington, D.C. is during the month of February at around 65 millimeters. Now this is an interesting comparison because 65 millimeters is the lowest in Washington, D.C., but it's still 3 times more than what we see in Vancouver. So this is a good sentence to comment on. This number, or this amount of rainfall, is more than 3 times the amount in the dry month of July experienced in Vancouver.